Word.
All right, city-run grocery stores and celebrating higher taxes. What have we let happen to this country? Let's check it out. Welcome to Rob Schmitt Tonight. New Yorkers really feeling the warmth of collectivism this week as Mayor Zohran Mamdani finally got a little deeper into the details of his scheme to make groceries more affordable for a few of us by totally distorting the marketplace and subsidizing the heavy losses with higher taxes. Doesn't that sound like a great idea? Mamdani's big idea: 5 city-run grocery stores, 1 in each borough of New York City, offering 30% discounts, he said, on staples like produce, meats, and dairy. Now, those who understand the economy are aware that grocery stores already operate on razor-thin margins thanks to tremendous competition, especially in a place like New York City where there's a grocer or a market or a bodega on pretty much every single corner. So Mamdani's artificially cheap stores will be subsidized by higher taxes taken from all of us. That's the only way that they could possibly survive. And with that, we welcome you to communism here in New York, which, of course, when it's spewed from the mouth of a serpent like this, always sounds so good.
All of this leaves too many New Yorkers feeling like groceries are out of reach. And that is frankly unacceptable, which is why city government is stepping in to make people's lives more affordable. Today, I am proud to announce a collection of essential staples that will be predictably 30% cheaper at all 5 of our city-run grocery stores.
Oh, city government is stepping in? I feel better already. The people spending $50 million to install a subway elevator are on the case. Mamdani revealed how little he understands by using plantains as an example during this press conference. Look at him holding up the plantains. A fruit that's grown in another country, which, thanks to the miracle of capitalism and open markets, only costs about $1 a pound at the grocery store as it is right now. Think about that. Grown in the Caribbean, harvested, shipped to American ports, then transferred to trucks and taken to individual grocers all over the country, stocked by employees and provided to customers for only $1 per pound. That's the prop that he decided to use. They weren't thinking. But the communists at City Hall understand none of this, of course, obsessed with the inequities of society, most of which they've created through government overgrowth, as we know. Another example that proves that these people have no idea what they're talking about, what they're doing: Mamdani asking the business owners that his plan could bankrupt to help him do this.
Our vision of affordable, well-run, city-owned grocery stores can only be accomplished with experienced operators who know how to source products, stock the shelves, and help answer shopper questions. So today, we are also issuing an RFP for private operators to help us with the day-to-day management of our 5 city-run grocery stores. If you know how to run a grocery store and you want to do more to help your fellow New Yorkers, I encourage you to head to grocery.nyc or scan the QR code to learn more about how to apply.
The big smile on his face as he tells market owners here in New York to scan a code to help assist with the decimation of their own business by helping City Hall establish unfair government-subsidized competition for them, slashing by 30% prices they could never compete with. They would literally go bankrupt in a matter of days. What a spectacle this very diverse news conference was, of course. Here's a question: how do you stop outsiders from taking advantage of these city-run grocery stores? How do you stop people from hoarding all of these city-run grocery products? How do you prevent these grocery store shelves from being decimated every day 20 minutes after the doors open? There's a lot of great questions that need to be answered about this. Here's an answer that'll fill you with confidence.
If you look at our RFP for the operator, we are looking to make sure that we target New Yorkers, whether it be at sort of a library card-esque, and also we manage who's buying, and that is focused on everyday New Yorkers.
That's a great answer. Was there an answer in there? I don't know. What did she say? I have no idea. I cannot wait to see how this goes. And also to take notice of how few New Yorkers are actually going to be helped by this expansive plan that's going to cost probably hundreds of millions of dollars when it's all said and done, because the number just keeps going up, 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 up. We have more from Mamdani this week as well. It didn't end there. After his cringy communistic video attacking the successful, attacking the wealthy in this city, gleefully promising to commandeer their wealth through a pied-à-terre tax. You remember that video. Today we have a database now created by his comrades at City Hall. They have effectively doxed every single pied-à-terre owner in New York who could be taxable under their new scheme. And they've just put all their information on the internet. That's nice. This is all they know how to do, to attack anyone with money, take their money, and then waste it. Tax and spend, tax and waste, whatever you want to call it. Amid reports that LeBron James might move to New York and commute to Philadelphia while he plays for the 76ers, because nobody in their right mind would ever live in Philadelphia, our governor's office tweeted out, "Le pied-à-terre." So that's your response? LeBron might be moving to New York, and the first response, the first reaction you get from the governor is to mock how much you're going to tax him publicly on the internet, drooling over the thought of taxing LeBron James for a second home in New York City. Welcome to the Democrat Party today. Andrew Klavan is the host of the Andrew Klavan Show, and he joins us now. Let's start with the grocery plan, and the people running New York have really no idea what they're doing, and I think that was very evident in the news conference. They're very excited, they're very happy, but they have no clue what they're doing. They hate capitalism, but in that hatred is also a total refusal to understand it even at its basest level, right?
Well, yeah, it's sadly comic because the end of the story has already been written. We all know what it's going to be. The lower prices, subsidized by taxpayers, will drive the local bodegas out of business. There'll be no competition. Prices will go up. Stocks will go down. They'll have empty shelves. They'll finally close, leaving a desert, a food desert, in the poorest neighborhoods in New York, which is where he's opening. This is the South Bronx. This is happening, as I'm speaking to you, this is happening in Chicago, right, where they just pumped $13 million into a bunch of stores in the South Side, which are now shutting down. You know, the market is a wonderful thing. It gives you information. That's what it gives you. It gives you the information of what things are worth and what their value is, so people know how much to put in, how many stores to supply, and what the prices should be. That's what a free market does. Without it, you're just walking around in the dark, bumping into things. And we know this already, and so we know we'll move on to the next phase, which is blaming Trump or the Jews or whoever he decides to blame on his failures.
It's, you know, what's so sad is that we're so fortunate to live in this place, to live in the West, where all of these things have come together. It was not easy to put together this economy and to put together all of this prosperity. It really was a miracle. And to see people that sit there and just pick at little inconsistencies that they can find, and they have no clue how it all works, and then they stand up there and they have these grand schemes to make it better. It's so frustrating that we don't have a better understanding of that. Let me just show you this tweet from economist Peter St. Onge here for a second. Typical grocery margins, 2%. First, the city will lose ungodly amounts of money on this plan, at least 28 cents on the dollar. Second, below-cost stores will steal enough market share that real groceries abandon the city. Taxpayers get tired of the money hole / subsidies, at which point city groceries become money holes full of rotting food. New Yorkers will have to take 2 trains and a bus to find a real grocery store. Again, these people have no idea what they're toying with. They just needed a way to get power.
Yeah, and meanwhile, we've got voters, these young voters especially, who've been treated to 60 years of installed ignorance of universities teaching them that we're the bad guys, that capitalism doesn't work, right, that it all can be solved by socialism. They have no idea what's coming, and yet it's happened 100 times before, and it's never happened any other way. It never goes a different way. No. And so, you know, I mean, I have to say, at the Daily Wire, I'm always the guy who's saying, don't call people evil, but whenever I look at Mamdani, I think of that Shakespeare line, a man can smile and be a villain, because he is a villain. He knows what he's doing. He's an Islamist, and he wants, if you read the DSA website, they want America to collapse. And so he's actually going to achieve a little part of what he wants.
And he does it with a hell of a smile. He's a great actor. Real quick, I got 20 seconds left. How about Kathy Hochul celebrating the potential? I mean, this is how you welcome one of the best players in the NBA to your city. You celebrate taxing him publicly on X.
Well, let's hope LeBron is smart enough to hear that and stays somewhere else. I mean, It is ridiculous. I don't know how long they think people will stay around and just have their wealth stolen from them. It's ridiculous.
It is. Certainly is. Andrew Klavan, good to see you. Thanks so much.
Good to see you.
All right, Evan Barker is a former Democrat campaign operative. Her new book, Nothing Left, details the decline of the Democrat Party, and we thought that was a very interesting topic for a book, so we wanted to have you on to talk about it. Thanks for coming here into the studio. You were a lifelong Democrat. You fundraised for, I mean, Cori Bush, of all people, Jasmine Crockett. Something happened to you in the last election, and you went from that to voting for Donald Trump.
Yeah.
I want to start there and just try to figure out how on earth that is even possible.
Yeah, so my fundraising firm that I worked with, I was called Left Rising.
Right.
And yes, we had every client from Cori Bush to Ilhan Omar.
Ilhan.
To Jasmine Crockett, to Justice Democrats. We were about as far left as we could be, and I was a director there, actually.
Yeah.
And yes, in this last election, I did vote for Donald Trump, crazy enough.
Why?
It was a
Tell me what
combination.
happened.
It was different things. It was like a combination of just seeing the people that I worked with go more and more radically to the left on a lot of these social and cultural issues that I just don't identify with. I became activated in Democratic politics in 2008 under Obama. And things were a little bit more normal back then. And I saw the party just go further and further to the left, defund the police, identity politics, open borders. And then on top of that, I saw the way that the people that I worked with looked at people in the middle of the country, which is where I come from.
Right.
And a lot of the people that work in far left progressive politics are very privileged. They come from backgrounds kind of like Zohran.
They're rich
Mamdani.
white kids. Yeah.
They're rich white kids.
Or rich Ugandan kids. Yeah, whichever
who
one.
hate other white people.
Right,
mostly.
exactly.
That's who they hate. Yeah. In the middle of the country who voted for Donald Trump, people like my family. And it was just a...
And
it was the perfect storm.
You write in your book that they don't really want those Trump voters back. They have no interest in engaging them. They want to just leave them behind. They find them to be deplorable, and they just want to gather a new group of younger, more diverse voters and make that win.
But ironically, it's not working because in this past election, we saw a ton of Latinos vote for Donald Trump.
Right.
We saw black men vote for Donald Trump. Yeah, I was actually on the lawn of Tom Steyer's mansion in San Francisco when he brought out his new director of his organization, and her mission that cycle was to spend $60 million to help the Democrats. And she literally announced, and I write this in my book, Nothing Left, she literally announced to the crowd of these extremely rich white people clapping at her every word like drunken seals that we would not be getting those voters back, that they were gone and there was no point, and that the future was going to be young people and young people of color. Because
they don't want to abandon this crazy platform that they've taken on, and you can't get those voters if you're going to be
exactly insane. They refuse to moderate.
I mean, you talked about how you came in under an Obama. You were activated. Obama was a stretch for this country. That was a move to the left. Looking back on it now in 2026, Obama looks like not conservative, but he looks way more normal than anyone else in his party right now does that's making any noise.
I mean, he was the deporter in chief.
Right.
I mean, he deported a ton of people. So he wanted closed borders.
But look at that. I mean, you go from 2000 to 2008, Obama was a big shift left. You go from 8 to 26, and now Obama is getting left behind. Obama wouldn't primary well today.
No.
I mean, he would, because of the color of his skin, he'd probably do fairly well in that party, but his policies would not primary well at all.
No, and actually that might be enough for him to not do well, even if he, was a minority. And so, I'd also see the donors shift their priorities, by the way.
Right.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, you keep going.
Yeah, so I also saw the donors became more and more identity obsessed, especially in 2020. The George Soros's organization actually put out a directive in 2020 that said that they would only donate to non-white organizations, organizations led by non-white people for the next 5 years. They
deserve everything they got coming to them. I got 20 seconds left. I just wanted to ask you this question as somebody that knows that party very well.
Yeah.
USAID was effectively defunded. State Department basically shut it down about a year ago. How much of an impact did that have on the party?
On the I honestly don't know.
It's a tough question, I know,
so
right?
the fundraising that I did was more in the political realm.
Right.
It was more like with campaigns and PACs and stuff like that. So I'd imagine that would have more to do with like the nonprofit side of things.
Well, it's the book sounds really interesting. I'm always fascinated to hear from people that just make that shift, either from one to the other, and how it happens. Evan Barker, Nothing Left is the book. We appreciate you coming on.
Thank you.
Thanks so much. Good to see you.
Thanks.
All right, Trump in attendance as Lindsey Graham's life is honored in Washington. Netanyahu and Zelensky also there and meeting with the president today. We've got that coming up next as we take a look at Iran. And then later in News from the Left, why is Ohio's governor so obsessed with Haitian migrants?
It's going to be a big blow to the community.
All across the nation.
So we heard a lot about Gaza recently. We're going to head down there, check it out. We're going to be doing our show right here from Minneapolis.
People can't stop talking
I agree mostly with a guy from Newsmax. We're not all bad dudes.
about Carl Higbie.
Oh, yeah? What are you going to do? You going to come check it out of my ham? I'm going to eat half this plate during the break. Maybe I'll call the ICE hotline. I don't know if I'll have enough time.
And Frontline for the big news they need to know. Watch Carl Higbie. Frontline.
Artificial intelligence is transforming healthcare. This breakthrough technology is empowering researchers to discover new treatments and cures. AI is helping us manufacture smarter medical devices, and it's going to extend and improve the quality of our lives. AI is transformative, and it can be life-saving. China wants to dominate AI and surpass the U.S. in modernizing healthcare. America must lead. America must innovate. America must win. Let's protect our competitive edge.
People always ask me how I stay ready, how I lock in when it actually counts. They think I must be on something. It's pure, it's potent, it's all me. Something that never lets me down. Armra, I'm on it.
My dad had never been in better shape. Then he had a stroke and passed away. But he had life insurance. So even after he was gone, he was still taking care of us. Ethos.com, 10 minutes. 100% online.
Check your price today at ethos.com.
Now, tirzepatide for weight management is available in a dissolvable tablet. It's not the injection and doesn't offer the same strength or clinical evidence as the injectable form, and results will differ from the injection. But for patients who don't want shots, this tablet option is worth exploring. Understanding results will differ from the injection. Tirzepatide tablets are a prescription that starts with a telehealth evaluation by a licensed physician who reviews your health history. And if it's right for you, they prescribe it. This might be worth a conversation.
Do you spend the night trying to get comfortable? Your knees rub bone on bone. Your back and hips ache. You wake up in pain. Now, from the company that's reshaped how America sleeps, there's the Contour Legacy Pillow. The patented ergonomically designed tapered leg pillow that naturally fits the contours of your legs, knees, and thighs to help align your spine and alleviate pain.
Sleeping on your side, your leg comes over and puts you out of alignment, causing low back pain, hip pain, even knee pain. By using the Contour Legacy Pillow, it restores the natural alignment of the spine, helping to alleviate pain and pressure, leading to a much more restful sleep.
Old-fashioned leg pillows are bulky, fall out, and get caught on sheets. But the anatomical design of the Legacy Pillow perfectly fits the shape of your body. It's made from a soft memory foam, so it never loses its shape. You can even use two together for full leg alignment. Legacy Pillow is exclusively ventilated, so it always stays cool and dry.
Order the Contour Legacy Pillow on Amazon now.
Well, he was always quick to laugh, and no one ever doubted the gravity of his mission. Above all, Lindsey Graham believed in a strong America. He was extremely hawkish. I will tell you, he never saw a war that he didn't like. Only his true friends would understand that, but he wanted it for the good of our country. Virtually everyone, Republican or Democrat, liked Lindsey. Well, not everybody, but it sounds good. Not everybody. He was a tough cookie, okay? I have to veer from this for a second. He was a tough cookie, Darlene, but he was beautiful.
Oh, what a eulogy today. The president remembering Lindsey Graham this afternoon. Another private rotunda ceremony at the Capitol was held this morning as well to commemorate Graham's 33 years of military service. In town for Graham's funeral, interestingly enough, Israel's Benjamin Netanyahu and Ukraine's Volodymyr Zelensky in town to say goodbye and also meet with the president, which they did at the White House. So it was a busy day for the president. It's Netanyahu's 8th White House visit in Trump's 2nd term. They talked Iran, Lebanon, and the Abraham Accords, lasted for over an hour. So let's talk about, let's focus in on Iran here. Blaine Holt, retired Brigadier General, joins us now. Maid Maleki, Senior Fellow at the Foundation for Defense of Democracy. It's good to see you both. Blaine, I want to start with a little bit of breaking news tonight. CENTCOM just announcing that Iran has launched an attempted sneak attack a little over an hour ago against U.S. forces at a base in Jordan. Multiple ballistic missiles fired, all intercepted. Pretty escalatory in a moment when the president had paused strikes on Iran to, once again, attempt to see where negotiations might go. What's your reaction to that, Blaine?
Yeah, well, it proves that they don't really want to talk. It also proves that there is no command and control in Iran whatsoever. It's IRGC versus those that think they're in charge versus whatever's left of the mullahs. It's chaos. And it's great that we intercepted all of those inbounds. But quite honestly, I'm going to guess that overnight the president is going to change his calculation about how he wants to proceed with Iran and what lies next. And what lies next is a complete and full military solution. I don't think it involves anything different than what we're doing, which is destroying the IRGC to the point where Iran and the Iranian people can take over.
Maid, what should the president do? I mean, a sneak attack? He was just giving the regime a break, but as Blaine said, nobody knows who's really running this show, and we don't know if we're negotiating with people that have any control at all.
That's true, and I think we should respond. But let me just make a different case here. I think what we're seeing happening here is the Islamic Republic is really trying to drag the U.S. administration back to the negotiation table. I think the worst case scenario for this regime right now isn't really just more strike. It's a naval blockade coupled with really strict sanctions enforcement, maximum pressure campaign, with no prospects of a nuclear deal with sanctions relief. No conflict for Iranian regime right now means really an end to this artificial suppression of inflation and market demand domestically that the war has caused. So if there is no prospect of a deal and the inflation starts going up, and they have a gasoline shortage coming up, and as of today, there are domestic protests that we saw starting in Iran. It's really just, the regime is about to experience really the underlying economic collapse head on.
Well, that
inflation rate of 88.6%, that's crazy.
Well, Blaine, let's talk about that. I mean, they're saying that sanctions could be more effective here, although it's hard to imagine that this regime buckles under sanctions. They've lasted this long. Your reaction to that, let's start there.
Yeah, they're broke, and they're going to keep going for as long as they have weapons. There's only one way out for the IRGC, and that's martyrdom. What we have to be careful about is terror cells as a last act of defiance as they're leaving. But quite honestly, a military and economic solution is what is being brought to bear. They haven't had any ability in any of these breaks to reconstitute themselves in any way, shape, or form. And so we're consulting with our allies. We did a good bomb damage assessment. And honestly, we're 5.5 months into a war. Listen, I fought one that took 20 and went nowhere. So we're on the right path. It takes a little patience, but we will get there. And what we have to do is step on the pedal to protect our folks.
Real quick before I go back to Maid, but Blaine, the claim that the stockpiles are low and that's why the president doesn't want to re-engage. What's your reaction to that?
Well, we couldn't re-engage. 3 days is not enough to reconstitute stockpiles. And the leakers who are putting out logistics information, I find that very interesting that they're running to things like the Wall Street Journal to put that out there. Yeah. No, we're fine. We have multiple military options. And even if we did have any kind of supply chain issues, what we would do is we would represent our forces in a very different way. We can hold any target around the world at risk 24/7, 365, even now.
Interesting. Maid, what's your how optimistic are you? We've followed this war for months together. We've had you guys on so many times. How optimistic are you that this ends in any kind of manner where Iran is a different country at the end of this?
Well, I think we're heading that way. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. I mean, the gap between the Iranian regime and its people is so wide that it just doesn't make sense that the regime continues to remain in place and survive. It'll happen at some point. I think we should just need to prepare for how and when we're going to really consider supporting the Iranian people, the next round of uprising. We had this discussion before. I think we should be ready to support the Iranian people to take the government back, and that's coming. I mean, the protests in Iran went from every 8 years to every year. And the Iranian regime had to kill 40,000 innocent Iranians in January, just past, a couple of months ago, to survive. And I think that's coming again, and we should plan for it.
Well, they just hung a few protesters from cranes earlier today, I read. So,
Yeah, right.
Blaine Holt, Maid Maleki, thanks so much, guys. We'll follow it, of course.
Thanks, Rob.
Coming up, the Biden audio tapes. Just how much classified information did Joe Biden share long before he was the president of the United States, and why did he get off so easy? Jeffrey Clark secured these tapes after a long FOIA battle with the DOJ, and he joins us up next.
People think news just happens. It doesn't. It happens because there's someone there to capture the moment, to explain it and share it. That's my job. I go where news breaks and give you the facts. Join me for the record on Newsmax.
With Jackpocket, you can order official state lottery tickets anytime, anywhere. And you can see your ticket on the app. Plus, with new official state scratch-offs available on the app, more of your favorite games are right at your fingertips.
New Jackpocket customers get $10 instantly in lottery credits when you deposit just $5.
Another lost summer scrolling and swiping? Turns out the fix is right here. Create new lifetime memories from the comfort of your backyard. No passports, no reservations. Latham's premium handcrafted pools can be installed in weeks. Our pools won't stain or crack and never require costly resurfacing. And with our crystal finish, you can bring your favorite exotic watercolor and shimmer right to your own backyard. Visit LathamPool.com now. Latham is a proud sponsor of USA Artistic Swimming.
Hey, I'm Dr. Drew. You know, our cells oxidize, and fatty 15 reduces that risk of cellular membrane oxidation called ferroptosis. C15 is the longevity nutrient. I just find it so fascinating that it was a veterinarian studying the Navy's fleet of dolphins who discovered C15's importance to the health of mammalian dolphins and mammalian humans. I take this nutrient, my family takes the nutrients, you should too. Fatty 15 has benefits that people actually see and feel.
Kevin Sorbo here, and I have an important message to share. The government needs more money, your money. If you owe the IRS back taxes, they can garnish your wages and levy your bank accounts. They can even seize your retirement or take your home. Don't let the IRS target you. Call the professionals at Tax Network USA. Their tax lawyers and enrolled agents are experts in powerful programs that may even help you eliminate your tax debt.
Call for a free consultation or visit tnusa.com.
This is the mattress America has waited 250 years for. Consumer Reports recommended, crafted and assembled in the USA.
Because the American dream can't happen unless we all get some serious American sleep. Oh my God!
I give the tunnel to towers because it's the best of who we are. Paying off the mortgage for a family that lost their husband, their spouse in the line of duty, is the difference in galvanizing a family to go forward. Tunnels to Towers beats almost every charity out there hands down, and you see your money at work. Let us do good.
Millions of Americans rely on a statin to reduce cholesterol, but statins can deplete CoQ10 levels. I recommend Cunol CoQ10 with 3 times better absorption and the #1 cardiologist recommended form. It helps replenish what statins deplete. Cunol, the brand I trust.
All right, welcome back. The Joe Biden audio tapes finally released after losing a long legal battle. Recordings made while Biden worked with his ghostwriter, Mark Zwanitzer, I should say, on his 2017 memoir. The tape's a key part of Special Counsel Robert Hur's investigation into Biden's handling of classified information back in 2024. Documents removed from a secure location during his time as vice president, even when he was a senator. That is fully against the law, by the way. Remember seeing the boxes of classified material in Joe Biden's garage behind the Corvette? Robert Hur did not recommend charges in all this, even though he knew that Biden clearly broke some very serious laws. Biden even admitted to doing so on tape. Take a listen.
Just found all the classified stuff downstairs. I wrote the president a handwritten 40-page memorandum. Next thing I have here is this is classified. It's all it's goes to the 17th.
So just a reminder, all this had happened before he became the president of the United States. So that's the problem. When you're a senator, vice president, you can't do this. The tape's also appearing to show Biden confused at times, unable to remember certain events during his conversation with Zohran. Take a listen to this.
What was I going to ask you? Something else. Oh, gosh. I can't think what it is. I'm in Munich, but after Angela Merkel, president's working lunch with, hang on a second. It's confusing me. Oh, God, the guy at Princeton now, the economist, good guy, was our chief economic advisor. Oh, not Kaufman, think of his name. And the guy back out at the University of Chicago with a funny name, I'll think of it.
Goolsby is one.
Goolsby.
Yeah, Goolsby is in Chicago.
And the other guy's at Princeton.
Yeah.
We should write the name down so we keep forgetting.
So, and again, that was years ago. Now, when they did the investigation, they interviewed the president, Robert Hur, you see on the screen, this depicted Biden as struggling to remember events and exhibiting diminished faculties during his investigative interviews years later. And that Biden would have presented himself as an elderly man with a poor memory, making it tough for a jury to find him guilty, being more so a sympathetic figure. Jeffrey Clark, Vice President of Litigation for the Oversight Project, received these tapes after a multi-year FOIA battle with the DOJ, and he joins us here on the set to talk about it. Jeff, good to see you. What do the tapes tell us? There's so much to it.
Well, the tapes tell us, let me make 3 points. The first one is that they tell us that Biden's brain was scrambled even back in 2016 and 2017, right? He did not have the capacity to be put up for as the president of the United States. And the people who were around him, they knew that, and they still put him forward, right? And then they tried to cover up for him with his auto pen presidency. That's like a major takeaway from this.
Right.
The second thing is what you were just showing with Robert Hur. There are some points where he's very lucid, and the idea that he couldn't stand trial, especially for acts that were committed before 2016 and 2017, because it is a crime under the Espionage Act to do two things: to take the documents away from a SCIF in the Senate or a SCIF at the White House in the executive office building somewhere. That is not something he could do when he left office. That preceded 2016 and 2017, and yet here he is doing that. Yeah. And then also, right, the issue of his capacity goes back to that time period, and I didn't see her ever analyze what his mental capacity was at the time he took the documents, and that's really important.
I remember thinking at the time, I wonder if Biden was kind of playing up his his age to get some sympathy from Robert Hur when they investigated that, because he knew he had really screwed up. And, I'm just an old man, I can't remember anything, stuff like that. But, I mean, you looked at what they did to the president, and they hit him with so many different charges. But on classified documents, the president was the president of the United States. He had the ability to declassify anything he wanted. They went after him so hard. And I know he was defiant, didn't want to give him back. He was pissed he had lost the election and things like that. But it's, for them to go so easy. I mean, when you're removing things from a SCIF as a senator, that's a really big deal. And for them to go so hard at Trump when he was the only one that was actually the president of the United States with those documents, that just reeked of hypocrisy.
It does, Rob, absolutely. Look, it's an apples and oranges comparison to talk about Biden versus Trump. Trump, as you said, did have the power to declassify documents. And if you're the president, you control the entire classification system. Joe Biden, at the relevant time periods, was not the president of the United States, not at all. And he didn't have those powers. There's no indication that Obama delegated any such powers to him. And so he violated the law both from his time in the Senate and his time as vice president. And, it's clear that he did this deliberately. Right. He had, to my mind, the requisite state of mind. Sure. If you go back to when he took these documents.
Way back in time, right?
Exactly. And so, President Trump, when he took documents, not only, first of all, I believe he tried to declassify them, and I think the deep state tried to bury that. Yeah. But just by the act of taking them, I have argued many times that he declassified them by course of conduct, which the president can do.
I don't get, like, I mean, you look at, they're going after Bolton now. It seems like everyone in Washington is taking classified documents. Bolton's now in trouble for it. Does it feel like that to you? Is there a lot of this kind of behavior? And usually if you just admit it and give them back, you're okay?
You know, I think they're too, they're heavy on the people they want to go heavy on, and they're easy on the people they want to go easy on for political reasons. I'll tell you, I took it very seriously. So my last day at the Justice Department in Trump 45, you know, before fast forwarding, I entered Trump 47 at the White House. You know, I had some classified documents, and I had them in a lock bag. I had them in my office. I went to the Justice Command Center where classified documents are kept, and I turned them in. I signed in exactly what they were for, and I made sure that, you know, there were no more classified documents that I had, because I realized, you know, especially having touched the 2020 election that I did, that if they could find anything on me, they would do that.
They would do it. That makes good sense. Jeffrey Clark, good to see you. Thanks so much.
Good to see you as well, Rob. Thanks.
All right. Tomorrow, Tony Fauci goes before Congress to be skewered for funding the creation of COVID and the many lies and deceptions that followed. Former CDC Director Robert Redfield on that, coming up next.
Hey, I'm Carl Higbee from Newsmax. Look, I'm unapologetically pro-American, and honestly, this is the one place that lets me call it how it is. I'm not holding back. I'll give it to you straight every single night.
Hi there, I'm Dean Heskin, President and CEO of Swiss America. Most investors believe their IRA, 401k, and bank accounts are reliable and safe. But what if our economy becomes so dire that you're restricted from accessing your own money? The fact is that should your bank be in trouble for holding bad loans, the burden could fall on you to help bail them out. Even more concerning is that U.S. financial regulations allow banks to impose withdrawal limits on your hard-earned savings. But there's something you can do about it. Our team at Swiss America has a report called The Secret War on Cash. Learn how to protect yourself with assets that can remain outside the control of banks and other financial institutions. For over 40 years, Swiss America has been one of the most trusted metal firms in the country. So don't wait. Call or text the number on your screen today for financial peace of mind in these uncertain times.
Look at her. Everything about her is awake. The body gives it away. There's a frequency to it. It's locked in. Always ready. There's something remarkable about it. When you notice it, you can't help but wonder what they're on. Something that never lets me down. Armra. I'm on it.
This is the Bearskin Backpack Hoodie. It solves a universal problem. What do you do with your hoodie when you don't need it anymore?
Throw it over your shoulders if you own a yacht, or like to pretend you do.
Or just don't. Your hoodie becomes your bag.
So you carry what you need and nothing you don't. No yacht required. Bearskin,
Built for the brave. Just go to bearskin.tv now to get free delivery.
Today's AI capabilities can make your head spin, but for scammers, it's the ultimate tool. They're using AI to exploit tech gaps and slip past traditional security. PCmatic keeps your information private and devices safe with online security solutions developed in America to protect Americans. Built for homes, businesses, and government agencies. Secure 5 devices for just $50 for your first year. Get online protection at PCmatic.com.
Don't kibble your dog.
Oh, hey, Dr. Marty.
Hey, Bat.
But what's wrong with this? It's premium stuff.
Let's check it out. It's still kibble, which means it's ultra-processed at extremely high temperatures that destroy the nutrients in the food. But at Dr. Marty, we gently freeze-dried premium meats, fruits, and vegetables, locking in their nutrients.
Never kibbled.
You got it, kid, and they're gonna love it.
How easy is it to order lottery tickets with Jackpocket? Step 1, grab your phone. Step 2, download Jackpocket and order tickets for your favorite state lottery games. Step 3, let the good times roll.
New Jackpocket customers get $10 instantly in lottery credits when you deposit just $5.
Not being gain of function. Let me finish.
You take an animal virus and you increase its transmissibility to humans.
Right.
You're saying that's not gain of function?
Yeah, that is correct. And Senator Paul, you do not know what you are talking about.
5 years since that moment, and tomorrow morning, 8:30 a.m., we finally get to see the encore. We're very excited for what's going to happen tomorrow. Thanks to Senator Rand Paul, the world now has access to Dr. Fauci's diary. The retired mad scientist who loved all the fame that he gained at the height of the pandemic that he helped to start will have plenty of spotlight and cameras on him tomorrow, forced to answer for many revealing moments from his pandemic paper trail. So many things to talk to Fauci about. It's going to be an interesting day. It starts early. Dr. Robert Redfield is a former CDC director, and he joins us now. Sir, it's good to have you on. They were getting into gain of function there. We all seem to know the truth on that. He's trying to deceive with how things are defined and that kind of stuff. But do you think we can get Fauci tomorrow to admit that he in some way funded this lab that we now believe created this virus?
Well, I hope he does. I hope he tells the truth. I hope he provides an explanation for why he made the decisions that he made. I'm not certain we're going to get that, but Rand Paul's done a great job in trying to bring this to the American public and see. I just hope that he is forthright and honest and tells the truth, but we'll just have to wait and see.
Rand Paul, just posted earlier today that if Fauci lies tomorrow, he's not going to be covered by that preemptive pardon that he was given from Joe Biden. And by the way, who needs a preemptive pardon? Which, that just really screams something. What's your take on all this? What's your take on Tony Fauci? Well, I'm disappointed. I think he clearly misled Congress. He clearly misled the media, and he clearly misled the American public on a number of issues. I was very disappointed to read some of his diary, which I didn't know existed. It was very problematic when I saw the attention that he was paying to his own notoriety, which I seem to think was highly misplaced. He was supposed to be focused on the public health response for the American public, and it did seem he put a lot of focus on how he was perceived in the media and the famous people that he got to meet. I'm just hopeful that he stays in the hearing for a couple hours and he doesn't somehow exit early with some excuse and answers his questions similar to what he did in the Missouri deposition, where almost every question he was asked, he said, "I don't remember, I don't recall, I'm not sure, I don't remember, I don't recall." Right. But if he does, when they ask people, what is true, Dr. Fauci, is what you said in public on this day, and they have the tapes, is that truth, or is it what you entered on your diary this day? Right. Because they don't go together. Yeah. You can't have it both ways. Which one is true? Well, let's look at some of the diary here. It spanned 3 years. On lockdown, school closures, he had written in March 15, 2020. It's like day one of the pandemic. They spoke with de Blasio, mayor of New York, convinced him to close the New York City schools, said we should close bars and restaurants as well. He talked about this in his own diary. He had a similar call with Gavin Newsom's chief of staff, convinced California, close the schools, close the bars and restaurants. 2 years later, when we all learned a lot more about the direction that we should have gone with this and that we should have probably moved toward herd immunity, and after we saw the tremendous damage that was done to our economy and to our education system, here's how Fauci sounded on these same issues.
They always come back and say Fauci was responsible for closing schools. I had nothing to do.
I mean,
let's get down to the facts.
You're not the head of a school board.
Exactly.
But that's a very telling moment right there. How do you take that?
Yeah, I think, Rob, I think there's a number of those as you go through it. And it's very sad because on this issue, I was a strong proponent that the public health interest of the K through 12 was best served by staying in face-to-face learning. And I really tried hard to keep the schools open. I was very much against this 6-foot distancing, which I didn't think there was any scientific evidence for, which if you did 6 months distancing, the consequence was you close schools, and Fauci, I talked to de Blasio also. I took a different position that I thought it was in the interest to keep the schools open. I thought it was just, disheartening for me to see him say that he had nothing to do with that when in fact he was on the phone trying to convince the mayor and the governors. And we were on phone calls with the vice president, with most of the governors and most of the states and in the White House task force. And Tony took the position that we should obviously close the schools and shut down restaurants and bars. I think that policy was a big mistake.
Right.
It's one thing to do the Mike Pence idea of taking a knee for 15 days and try to figure out how to keep these activities going in a safe way. It was another thing to shut them down. And that was a huge policy mistake. I'd love him just to say, I did the best I could. And in retrospect, that was a mistake. That was a mistake. I just published my own book, Redfield's Warning.
Yeah.
I encourage the audience to listen to, take a read of
Redfield's
it.
Warning.
And in that book, you'll see that almost every chapter I said, we got that wrong. We got that wrong. In retrospect, that was a mistake. I just think coming clean and acknowledging the mistakes would be in his best interest.
I got 30 seconds left. I want to just speak to a second. I mean, if depending on what channel you watch, there's a very different story of Tony Fauci and of COVID and everything. And that's what's so scary to me. We have from Mehdi Hassan, who used to work for MSNBC. COVID was not a lab leak, he says. In fact, more agencies say it was natural origin than say it was a lab leak. That's a tweet from this week from a person that worked in the mainstream media for a very long time. What do you say to that?
Well, it's just not truthful. As you know, all of the major intelligence agencies have now concluded that it's much more likely they came from the lab, and there's no doubt that this epidemic came from the lab. Now, unfortunately, there's no doubt that it was not an event of nature, and this is where Fauci has a lot of culpability. It was really a consequence of science. The gain of function research that was being done. It led to the greatest pandemic of since over 100 years and took the lives of over 20 million people in the world. That was not nature. That was science.
That was everything that he's supposed to work to prevent. It caused. And that's the ultimate failure. That's the ultimate crime, in my opinion. I got to leave it there. CDC Director Robert Redfield, former CDC Director. Thank you so much, sir. We appreciate it.
God bless.
Good to see you. Okay. Exciting company news to share with you before we go to the break. Today was just announced Newsmax and Meta have signed a partnership agreement giving Meta access to Newsmax's extensive content. We here at Newsmax see the partnership as the beginning of a move toward AI. We're proud to be partnering with Meta. If you want more information on this, you can go to newsmaxinvest.com. After the break, London's lying mayor.
Online trolls will make you think London is a lawless city.
I still love to surf, snowboard, and of course skate. So I take Cunol Magnesium to support my muscle and bone health. Cunol's high absorption magnesium glycinate helps me get the full benefits of magnesium. Cunol, the brand I trust.
If your dog struggles with stiff joints, low energy, messy poops, or an itchy coat, the cause might be sitting in your dog's food bowl right now. Kibble. That's why we created Badlands Ranch Superfood Complete, gently air-dried, packed with real canine superfoods to help your dog unlock puppy-like energy, smoother digestion, healthier joints, shinier coats, and more. Thousands have already made the switch. Visit your local pet food retailer today.
Feeling winded and short of breath when you should be enjoying life? Your days are made for more than this. And if you find yourself stopping more and more to catch your breath, you could be experiencing what we call temporary oxygen insufficiency. Don't let shortness of breath ruin your day. Give yourself a boost with Boost Oxygen. A few deep breaths of Boost Oxygen is all you need to help combat the negative effects of what we call temporary oxygen insufficiency, so you can get back to doing the things you love. Boost Oxygen contains pure supplemental oxygen that is safe for daily use and comes in a portable, lightweight canister without a prescription.
Now I live life on my terms. With Boost Oxygen, I am unstoppable.
Get all-natural 5-star respiratory support with Boost Oxygen. Get Boost Oxygen at these fine retailers.
Today I choose how to screen for colon cancer.
Give me Cologuard.
Excuse me?
You just need a prescription.
Victory!
Cologuard is for people 45 plus at average risk, not high risk. False positive and negative results may occur. Ask your provider for Cologuard.
Attention! Do you owe money to the IRS? If you owe $10,000 or more, you must hear this message because new Trump-era tax policy changes are providing relief to the American taxpayer. IRS policy changes in 2025 and 2026 have created new ways to resolve debt. Tax Relief Helpers knows exactly how to navigate them and could help you save thousands. Just call 800-357-9528 to protect your assets, home, and retirement.
I owed $87,000 in taxes. Tax Relief Helpers got the amount I owed down to just $3,500. I saved $83,500.
I got behind on my taxes and I owed $48,000. I called, and after they told me about the changes at the IRS, they got my bill fully removed.
We save Americans millions of dollars in tax debt every year, and we can help you. Call right now to take advantage of the latest Trump-era tax deductions to protect your assets, home, and retirement from the IRS. The call and consults are absolutely free. Call 800-357-9528. That's 800-357-9528. Attention! Do you owe money to the IRS? If you owe $10,000 or more, you must hear this message because new Trump-era tax policy changes are providing relief to the American taxpayer. IRS policy changes in 2025 and 2026 have created new ways to resolve debt. Tax Relief Helpers knows exactly how to navigate them and could help you save thousands. Just call 800-357-9528 to protect your assets, home, and retirement.
I owed $87,000 in taxes. Tax Relief Helpers got the amount I owed down to just $3,500. I saved $83,500.
I got behind on my taxes and I owed $48,000. I called, and after they told me about the changes at the IRS, they got my bill fully removed.
We save Americans millions of dollars in tax debt every year, and we can help you. Call right now to take advantage of the latest Trump-era tax deductions to protect your assets, home, and retirement from the IRS. The call and consults are absolutely free. Call 800-357-9528. That's 800-357-9528.
Welcome back. Time now for news from the left. It's one of the more bizarre stories we've been seeing, but Ohio's Republican governor, Mike DeWine, just fully panicked over potentially losing thousands of Haitian migrants who've been living in his state since Joe Biden came into power in 2021 and largely milking welfare programs. Here's how this Republican sounds.
ICE is planning to mount a series of operations, including here in Ohio, to target, arrest, and ultimately deport some of the Haitian immigrants.
Well, it's a mistake. It's not good for the United States, and it's not good for the state of Ohio. These are people who have helped Springfield really come back. You know, they can't work anymore, and they won't have any way to make a living. It's going to be a big blow to the community. These are people who came here to work. They came here to fill jobs that were not being filled.
So admittedly, there's obviously a reliance in Ohio on these people in some capacity because they've been there for years and they do fill jobs. But just to explain to you how exactly this works, because it is so distasteful, big business in Ohio, especially medical, home care, things like that, they love cheap Haitian labor. You can get these guys for nothing from where they came from. And they don't care that a lot of these people have to live off entitlements as well while working for their minimal wages in the state of Ohio, because that's not big business's problem. The government takes care of that. You and I take care of that with our taxes. Those businesses lobby the governor to push back and try to stop mass deportations, protect their low-wage employees so they don't have to hire you for $10 or $15 more per hour. And that's how you get Republicans furious over the deportation of a group of people largely living here on welfare. That's how it works. Next up, Chicago's government has a plan to fight crime on public transportation, and that is with colorful signs.
We are launching our initiative that we, as the State's Attorney's Office and the CTA, are taking crime on the CTA very seriously. We are putting up these signs as an indication of what the consequences will be to any criminal actions on the CTA.
These signs are a message to all of our riders and employees that we are working together with the County State's Attorney's Office to take action.
A look at the world if it was run by liberal women. There's no emphasis on policing or anything like that. We're gonna hang up some signs, and I'm sure that these criminals are just going to listen to us because we'd like things to be a little bit safer. We don't want to push too hard. We just want things to be a little safer. And finally, across the pond in the UK, London's mayor, Sadiq Khan, touting his city as one of the safest in the world, blaming bots and online trolls for portraying London as a lawless big city. Take a look.
In case you forgot, London is one of the safest global cities in the world. We're expecting more than 5 million visitors in London this summer. And those coming to explore our city can do so knowing that it is one of the safest global cities in the world. Bots and online trolls may make you think London is a lawless city.
It's just the bots and online trolls. Metropolitan Police data revealing over 71,000 phone thefts in London last year. That's a lot of stolen phones. Majority of the thefts in England. Knife offenses under Khan have significantly risen as well. 14,860 knife crimes reported up until last September. Theft overall tripled since he took office in 2016. It's also widely known that you can't even wear a nice wristwatch in London anymore. The stories are everywhere, even in fancy neighborhoods. They'll run up to you, they'll rip the watch right off your hand, and if you don't give it to them, they'll stab you in the gut. An update on this incredible moment, a lifeguard heading to the White House. Next.
When you're in the news business, it never stops. News is always breaking, and it's my job to get you the news, no spin, no BS. If you don't believe us, just watch us.
Watch Finnerty, weeknights, only on Newsmax.
The body gives it away. You can't help but wonder what they're on. Something that never lets me down. Armra. I'm on it.
My dad has never been in better shape. He had a stroke and passed away. He had a life insurance policy. Ethos.com. In 10 minutes, you can be covered with life insurance.
Check your price today at ethos.com.
For years, I was hiding my drinking. I'm the type of drinker that I don't just have one. I didn't want to feel that urge anymore. That's what brought me to Oar Health. I'm a better dad. I'm a better husband. I just have a more grounded and present life, thanks to Oar Health.
Text Newsmax to 710-710 to learn more.
Pain kept slowing me down. Then I tried new KT Menthol pain relief patches. Unlike other patches that only mask pain, KT increases blood flow to help accelerate healing. So don't give up. Tape up. New KT Menthol pain relief patches.
It's me, Ricky. You know me. You grew up with me. I'm 56 and a half years of age. I am using this right here, Fatty 15, to get me to feel and look the best I've ever felt at my age. The C15 nutrient in Fatty 15 has been known to strengthen our cells and slow the aging process at a cellular level. And it is a game changer for your overall vitality. I urge you to try Fatty 15. Give your cells what they need and give yourself a chance with more time.
As history's preeminent expert on emergency communication, I fully endorse Rapid Radios. They are the only nationwide license-free push-to-talk walkie-talkies without any monthly fees. That's right, you get access to most carriers' networks without a contract. With Rapid Radios, you can communicate instantly from this Washington to that one. Isn't that right, George?
Darn straight. And I don't lie. That's my thing.
Now I know what you're thinking. I don't need no fancy highfalutin walkie-talkie. I've got a cell phone. Cell phones are notoriously unreliable during emergencies and when you're in the middle of nowhere. Plus, rapid radios are great for remote adventures, emergency preparedness, and workplace communications, and for keeping in touch with your loved ones.
Hey, Pa. Over.
You make me so proud, son. Over. Get your family connected with Rapid Radios today.
Go to rapidradios.com and get up to 60% off today. Plus, free shipping. Rapid Radios, the best way to stay connected.
Finally tonight, update on this incredible video you've likely seen. Little boy nearly killed by violent waves over the weekend. Seabright Beach, Santa Cruz, California. 10-year-old swept by the waves. A heroic 16-year-old lifeguard comes in. I mean, it's amazing. It was almost a suicide mission to go out there and try and save this kid. Yeah. The waves were horrific. Beachgoers all had to watch on the side. They know that you get out there, you're probably done. The boy, evaluated by the paramedics, reunited with his family after a couple beachgoers actually helped at the very end to pull this kid in. But that 16-year-old lifeguard, identified reportedly as Ryder Williams, his name, there in Central California on the coast. The president saying, we're going to bring him to the White House with his family and perhaps the boy that he saved to give that lifeguard a high civilian honor, the highest. Very brave. He deserves it. And that from the president. Finnerty's up next. That's an incredible story.
I love that, and I love that the president does the easy stuff, the easy parts of being president right. An American does something well, he invites them to the White House. That's what you should do. Joe Biden never did any of that because Joe Biden was not there between the ears.
No,
Rob?
he certainly wasn't.
You know, like the wheel was turning, but the hamster was dead.
Cheers to Ryder on that, though. I mean, that takes, he's got the floaty, but that takes guts to go out there. I mean, those waves are ridiculous in California. They can get really hot.
Tom Ace as well, remarkable. Rob, we'll do it again tomorrow. Finnerty starts right now.
Information. Truth is freedom. Is Newsmax. It's real news for real people.